Hello and welcome everyone to another Foreman community demo. So if you have any questions during the demo, please feel free to write to us in the YouTube live chat, or otherwise alternatively, you can use our Matrix channel or the Foreman channel on LibreChat, as all these sites will be monitored during the demo. Our presenters today are hoping to hear what you think about the latest features, and also that we have some RFCs today. So if you do have opinions, thoughts, comments, plus ones, reservations, just do please let us know. Also, if we are live, and if you've tuned in before, you'll probably know that things can go a little awry sometimes. So if you spot something, if you're experiencing excess buffering, if the sound goes anything like that that makes your viewing experience difficult, if there's something on the screen, for example, that's a little bit too small, just do feel free to let me know, and I will do my best to remedy it. And before we begin today, just a few short announcements. So since we last met, and Foreman 3.2 has been released, and this release brings with it 70 bug fixes and up to 20 enhancements. You can find a link to the release announcement in the video description here on YouTube. If you just click read more, you can find a link to the full release announcements where you can look at the bugs and all of the enhancements as part of that release. The release team as well, they have been discussing maybe simplifying the release process in the future, and maybe look at merging the Katello and Foreman release processes. So if you have any opinions or thoughts on that, do let us know either here or on our community discourse. And then also, I think Ian is going to speak to us today a bit about Katello 4.4, what's the status with that, what we have to look forward to. So now I'm going to pass you over to Ian.
All right, thanks, Melanie. I'm just gonna share a quick bit of documentation that y'all should see. All right, great. So hey everyone, just want to give a quick update on Katello 4.4, which pairs with Foreman 3.2. We're working on getting the GA out for that as soon as possible. There's been a few things hanging up the release process. There were a few issues from Katello 4.3 that we wanted to make sure were taken care of, so people didn't have troubles coming up from 4.2 to 4.3 when 4.2 is considered unsupported. And just recently we hit a build issue relating to a certain Ansible RPM that is blocking the release pipeline. So we are working on getting that all fixed, but that was a bit outside of what we control. So anyway, we're getting that done as soon as possible. But when 4.4 is ready, this documentation is still currently in PR form, but you should find something like this for Katello, a troubleshooting section, because there are a few manual fixes that we have that you will need to run if you're hitting these issues. I'll just run through these real quick. So the first issue is related to a permissions problem under the artifacts folder where all your pulp storage lives. If you ever see this operation not permitted error, you'll run this chown command. There was also an issue relating to Debian content with the download policy being blank. So we have a new Foreman rake task that you can run. And then lastly, there was an issue with pulp core 3.16. If you upgraded to it and you had a whole bunch of repositories, there's a possibility that you'll see this cryptography error that's being taken care of in pulp core 3.16.5, which where the RPMs should be up soon. But in case that you did upgrade and you saw this error, when 3.16.5 is out, there is a data repair script that you can run. So just look out for this troubleshooting section by the time you're upgrading to Katello 4.4 and Katello 4.3 as well. But yeah, those are all my updates for Katello 4.4.
Thank you very much, Ian. And I believe we had you're still with us for the next segment, so we'll start the main part of the demo now. And Ian and Maria are going to talk to us about alternative content access, a change in direction, and simplify design.
Awesome, thanks, Melanie. Yes, so I'm going to talk a bit about alternate content sources. I realized I don't think I have brought this up in a demo before. We've had a community RFC, but yeah, nothing in the demo. So I'll just give a quick overview of ACSs. I won't go too deep into the details, and then talk about what we're thinking about for simplifying it. So an alternate content source in Katello, just to kind of give a brief overview. Let's say that you have a setup where you're using a smart proxy mirror, and sometimes the case is that your smart proxy has a slow connection to your main Katello server. Maybe it's super far away, for example, but for whatever reason, it does have a fast connection to the upstream servers that your Katello is syncing from. So in that case, before, in older versions of Katello with Pulp 2, you could set up these things called alternate content sources. It was done outside of Katello through Pulp configuration files. But now we are planning on making it a fully fledged feature. So if this is the case in your system, ACSs can help. Yeah, and so when you download content, the metadata will be something small, maybe in like the megabytes, but then your RPMs could potentially be in the hundreds of gigs. So you could see it being a problem when you do your smart proxy sync to your Katello server if you have a slow connection there. So what ACSs fix is that it gives you a way to have your smart proxies sync directly from the upstream servers while still syncing the metadata from your Katello server. So that the Katello server is the main source of truth for what content should be on your smart proxy, but then the big content downloads will happen over the fast, speedy connection. And so before, when we were first approaching this idea, we were assuming that the user would want to control every little bit of the ACS. Essentially, what an ACS is, it's a construct of Pulp. You will select a base URL and a list of subpaths that your alternate content source should consider when you're syncing content. It's global for your entire install. So every repository sync in the background through Pulp would check to see if there are downloads or if RPMs can be downloaded from these alternate sources when you're doing a sync. And this would mean that the users have to create all these ACSs. But then at the same time, because people want to keep these alternate content sources up to date with what they have synced on their main Katello, it would end up being a lot of stuff to manage. Because if you create a new repository, suddenly you may think, oh, now I need to go to my ACSs and update the subpaths and such. So the new idea that we're starting to lean towards is that all you need to do to create an ACS is you have a list of products that you want to be included, and then you have a list of smart proxies that the ACSs should be deployed to. The downside of that is that because you're selecting the products, you can no longer specify exactly what you want your base URL and your subpaths to be. Instead, we would grab that information from the synced repositories. And in fact, for those of you who know how backend Pulp stuff works, it's likely we would actually reuse the remotes that are used for your main Katello repositories. So kind of the pros and cons here. The old idea, you had the ultimate customization, but the cons are it would be a lot to manage to keep up to date your synced repositories. And also it makes the UI pretty complicated. And with the new idea, it's very easy to manage. Really the only con being that you can't directly set where your alternate content source is syncing its RPMs from, which we're thinking won't be a problem because it's just so convenient to be able to kind of set this and forget about it and then see the instant benefits. And then once we get users on this, if they think that they need more customization, we can consider that down the line. But so with this, we have some UI mockups that Maria did. We went through the UI mockups for the old idea, figured out it was pretty complicated, and then went over to the new. So I will pass it over to her then, and then she can show off the nice new UI design.
Yeah, thank you, Ian. As Ian already mentioned, we iterated a lot. We went from complicated flows, which includes also different types of sources, but we ended up here simplifying the flow. So it's a wizard flow. You enter a name of the alternate content source, then you select a product you want to be associated with this content source, and then smart proxy. And that's kind of it. It's done and it's all set up. The other stuff will be automatic. So that was a quick UI. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Maria. And so I guess just to kind of close out this ACS conversation, we'd love to hear from people about if you think this old idea was better or if the new one sounds like the nice new easy way is just a better thing to live with. There is an RFC that you can find on the community website. I added this new idea to it in the last comment, and in the very first post, it shows how the old idea works. So you can kind of get some more details there, but you can also feel free to reach out on the RFC if you have any more questions as well. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Ian. I'll just paste that RFC into the YouTube live chat if people want to have a look at that now. Just doing that this sec. And if anyone has any questions, we can just allow a moment to see if there is any questions, any comments for Ian and Maria. Okie doke, I don't think so at this moment. So if you know where to find Ian and Maria, just feel free to follow up on the community discourse on the actual RFC itself. Thank you very much, the both of you, and we can move on now to our next demo, which is from Andrew, and Andrew is going to talk to us about Katello new host details, column sorting, tab hiding, and host collections.
Hello, everyone. So in that order, I suppose. So I'm on the new host UI here. If I go to the overview card, you may recognize this a little bit better. I'm going to jump right into content here. Basically today, I'll go over a few changes that Mr. Jeremy Lenz, who's not here today, has applied. So I won't be able to answer too many questions, but I will go over the changes he's introduced. So column sorting. So we have column sorting now added to packages, errata, module streams, repository sets, and I think one other table within host details. There are going to be some added column sorting columns later. Some of these are basically front-end based if you're more developer focused. So these are not originating. Some of them are not originated from the API, but rather discerned from a couple of data points once we receive the data. So all of the ones that are relatively easy to add have been added, and I can just demonstrate that here. If I do install version, I can go through and sort it by that, by the name, just what you kind of would expect as a typical user. You can come in and now sort by a few different states. Yeah, and so column sorting, I think most people understand the idea there. So I don't have any errata or repository sets on this box. Unfortunately, I can't show those, but I'm sure the sorting exists there as well. Okay, that was the first point I wanted to check. Now I'm on the overview page, and if I scroll down to the bottom here, I have a new card, and it's called Host Collections. So now we can see the host collections right from our overview. I can now add host collections. I only have, unfortunately, one host on this box, so I'm just going to go ahead and add that host to both the collections here. I have added a description, and I'll show you why in a minute. So this is the new modal that you can come add and remove your hosts, and it's quite quick. So added, boom, it's right here. If I expand that, I can see those descriptions for those hosts. So if you wanted to have some specific name here, but wanted to have a more further description, you could have that pop open and see that. Okay, so I can now go and remove a host if I wish, and I can remove all of them. And again, pretty quick. All right, now there was one other fix, and to demonstrate that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to unregister this host. So what was happening was when you register or unregistered a host, occasionally there would be data that was left over in the system that would make it so this page didn't get updated. So you would still see your tabs here. You would still see applicable cards that were no longer applicable because you had removed your host. So I'm just going to go over here and hit enter. Hopefully this works because it's a demo. Yay, unregistered. Now, if I refresh this page, you should see these tabs disappear and a few cards disappear as well, if all goes well. And of course, the demo gods are not with me. Oh, there we go. I had to refresh twice. Okay, yay. So now those tabs are gone, and we're missing quite a few of those cards that we saw earlier. So this just updates that this was based off of a bug that was found. And now this will update in near real time as long as you refresh once or twice here. That's all for me. Any questions? I'll attempt my best. But again, this was Jeremy Len's work. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Andrew. So I will just pause for a moment to look for questions, but I haven't seen any so far. And if you do think of questions later, you can always ask Jeremy when he returns to us. So thank you very much again, Andrew. And I will move on now to the next demo. So Samir is going to talk to us about inter-server sync improvements and some bug fixes around that as well.
Yeah, thanks, Melody. So let me share my screen here. All right. So I wanted to go over some improvements we have made to inter-satellite sync. So for that, I need two boxes. So I have this right here, which will act as an upstream source for my other box. So you can check that under Manage Manifest, and you can update the CDN configuration to pull data content from an upstream Foreman server. What we have added here is earlier we used to have a validation for organization. So I have an organization test here, but I don't have an organization test 2. So if I try this, I should get an error, which works. We added validations to environment and content views as well. So I don't have a library 2. So if I try this, I'll get an error saying there's no lifecycle environment with that. And I can do the same with content view label. So it will prevent you from creating wrong configurations. So that is one change. So let me close this here. And all right, so Next up, we have a change here. So if I go to my upstream source, and if I look at a repository, say Linux 6 server, I see two repositories which are available to be enabled. However, I have not enabled these. And if I go to my downstream box and look this up, it says no repositories available. So we also added a filter to only show repositories which are actually available. So those will be the enabled repositories in the upstream server. So here I have rel 7 server ansible 2.9 repos enabled. So I can see an option to enable this. So I'll go ahead and enable this. All right. Once I have enabled this, I can go confirm that in here. So I have a new repository created for Ansible Engine 2.9. And if I peek inside, the upstream URL will point to my upstream server and wherever it's published based on this path. Now I sync this repository upstream, so I should be able to sync it downstream, and this data will be fetched from the upstream server URL instead of going to the CDN. So all right, this sync is happening. It didn't fail immediately, saying it didn't point to a correct place, and we see content was downloaded. All right. That was all around inter-satellite sync that I had. One other thing I wanted to quickly demo was some changes to the remove repository flow that we made. So recently we added a flow where you're now allowed to delete a repository which has been published to some content view and promoted, etc. So we added this model. It will inform users if the repository has been published to content views. The change here is we also added this additional checkbox because it seemed too easy to delete repositories from content views, which can cause problems if you're not sure about what you're doing. So we added an additional checkbox, and we also added a setting to control this functionality in your setup, which is this one, allow deleting repositories in published content views. So now users, admins basically can turn this feature off if they wanted to. And yeah, that was all I had to share today.
Thank you very much, Samir. Glad that the thunder didn't join you for the demo. So we got away with it. Let me see now. Have we any questions for Samir? Nope. Okie doke. We can, before we just move on to the next one, Lucy, if you're here, would you mind going next, if that would be okay?
Sure, fine.
Cool, thank you. It just would make it would make more sense just to keep the Katello demos together. So Lucy will be talking to us about the new host details packages for Katello. Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you. Here I'm going to show you the new interface for the host packages. And to tell the difference, let's first take a look at the old page. It's under content hosts. You go to the packages, installed. Here you can select the packages and then remove them. Or you can go to applicables. You get a list of the upgradables. You can upgrade the packages you want. The new interface is under all hosts. You go to the content, packages. We will be in this page earlier when I drew demos for the column sorting. Here we get a list of all the installed packages for this host, along with the package name, status, installed version, and upgradable version. The minus sign here means there's no updates for this package, so the package status is up to date. For upgradable package, if there are multiple updates, only the latest version will be displayed here. And here you can upgrade it or remove it. For an up-to-date package, you can only remove it. So on top of this list, we have the familiar multi-select option, the search box. And here, the list of the packages can be filtered by the status, either upgradable or up-to-date. If you click again, you just clear the filter. The upgrade button is grayed out when there's nothing selected. Or if some of the selected packages are not upgradable, it's also grayed out. When it is enabled, you can upgrade either by remote execution or customized. The upgrade button itself uses either the Katello agent or remote execution to do the job, depending on which one is installed or enabled. From this dropdown, you can remove multiple packages in one operation. The install packages has been covered by Jeremy in his demo last time. On the right side, we have the pagination. And that's all I have. Thank you.
That was great, Lucy. Thank you very much. And does anyone have any questions for Lucy? Okie doke. Well, if you do at a later stage, you can just write to us on the community discourse as with all the others. So I think that is the end of our Katello demos for today. And up next then we have Maria. Maria is going to talk to us about some bug fixes in the bookmarks.
Yeah, couldn't find the unmute button. Yeah, so this is the old state. This is bug fixes for mostly React pages that don't refresh the page. So when a user selected a bookmark, then it stayed open, was annoying, and the search bar was empty, which was not comfortable because you don't know what you search for. And also you couldn't edit if you wanted it. And now after these bug fixes, when a user clicks on a bookmark, it closes and the text is there. This bug was mostly in audits and some React pages, and probably in more things than I know. So yeah, now it's solved. And yeah, this is from my demo.
Lovely, thank you very much. And those bug fixes, Maria, which version will they appear in? Like, when will users get to enjoy this fix?
Let me check, but it should, the red ones are in the Foreman community demo post. So, but I'm not sure about the versions. 3.3. Okay.
3.3, perfect.
One of them at least.
That's a bit better than none. Thank you very much, Maria. And up next is Adi, and Adi will talk to us about importing Ansible playbooks, some update with that.
Yeah, I'm just going to share my screen. So I mainly added two functionalities. The first one is to fetch The first one is to fetch ansible playbooks that are available. For now, I just added the API, and in the future, near future, I guess, we're going to add the UI as well. And you can see that after clicking, I'm getting all the Ansible playbooks names that are available to me. And the second functionality that I've added is the sync/import, how do you want to call it? And it's, we have two options. And the first one is to import a playbook by its name. And you can put it as you see on the screen. And it will be imported and created to a jump template. And now you can see here that I have a notification that the playbook has finished successfully. And after pressing task details, I can see here on raw, I can see which playbook, which job template was created. And on the other hand, we can also import all the available Ansible playbooks, and just, this is the fetch, yeah. And just by removing the playbook names. And now you can see that I have also the notification. I guess it takes a bit longer. And here you can see what was created. All of them are available as job templates, so you can run them. And that's it, I guess.
That is perfect. Thank you very much, Eddie, for showing us that. And I'll just ask if there are any questions. And I think we're good. Stream looks healthy, and we seem to be pretty much in sync. There isn't much of a delay on the console. So I think we can, thanks again, Adi, and I think we can move on to our next demo, which is from Amir, who I forgot to invite to this meeting, but he still managed to show up. So sorry about that, Amir. Thank you for coming. And Amir is going to talk to us about new features in the host page.
No worries, Melanie. And 1 second, I'm sharing my screen.
No worries.
Can you see my screen?
It's coming. It's okay. Yeah, it's super, super, super long.
Yeah, I will do some zoom in and zoom out. Hopefully it would be clear enough.
Perfect.
So today I would like to share a few small features in the host page, in the new host page. Let's start with the breadcrumb switcher. So as you may know, we redesigned our switcher into Patternfly 4. So this is more like a Patternfly 4 design. And we also added the switcher to the host page. So now you can switch easily between hosts. You don't need to go back to the index page. And also there is no full page reload. It's really, really quick. So let's see how it works. You just need to click on this symbol, and then you can see the list. Sorry, because of the zooming in, it's a bit messy. And you can see the list of your hosts. You can search for a specific host. Let's search for my Amazon one. And as you can see, very quickly, you don't need to go to the host list page. You can really switch between hosts via this switcher. Another new feature comes from a remote execution. As you can see, this one, the schedule job, as you can see here. Basically, you can schedule a job, and by clicking on that, we will be navigated to the new job creation. And as you can see, the host is synced up with the correct one. And I can also, if I click on the drop down on the caret, I can see remote execution features, and I can run some of these predefined jobs. For example, let's run a Puppet once. And if I go to the running, as you can see, I can see that job that it started just 5 seconds ago and it's running. And I can also go to see what happens with this job if I click on this name. Another feature which is not merged yet, but it will come very soon, is the details tab. As you can see, you can go to the details tab, and here you will find lots of more content, more cards, the same layout like the overview, but more details, more, more, you can add more details to the details tab. And if you can see that the card is basically collapsed, you can expand it by clicking on it. And with that mechanism, basically you can focus on what you actually interest of. So if I don't interest with the system properties, for example, I can collapse it. And if I refresh the page, it will remain collapsed. Let's see, as you can see, if I expand it and I refresh the page or sign out, sign in, it will keep that state, as you can see. So you can choose what you want to be expanded, what you want to be collapsed, and then you can focus on your preferences information. That's all I have to share for today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Amir. And I'm glad you made it. Let me see now if you have any questions for Amir. And I don't think so. So we can keep moving on. And if you do have questions for anyone, just ask them as they come to you. So thanks again, Amir. And our next demo is from Ole, and Ole is going to talk to us about DSL autocompletion in templates.
Thanks, Melanie. As everyone else, I will show my screen. And hey everyone, today I will be talking about a new feature I've added. It's related to all kind of templates Foreman provides. And I'm talking about report templates, provisioning templates, partition tables, you name it. And if you have installed webhooks plugin, it's related to webhooks templates as well. But before I start, let's do a little bit of recap. So whenever you're trying to write a new template, of course, you would use some macros the Foreman provides, because of that's the only way to gather all the information you've provided to Foreman. For example, name of the hosts, or their status, or actually anything which is available in your application. Time ago, you would, if you're a new user or you don't do that much of editing the templates or creating of them, you would navigate to the help section and you would see these huge list of the available macros in the Foreman, and that's it. You won't see how exactly you can use them, or you can't see any descriptions for them. Not so long time ago, we added a new documentation for those methods. You can find it in the administrator about page. It's called templates DSL, and it looks like the old API file documentation, or the simply API documentation. But this one is for all the macros available in the Foreman. As you can see, the name of the macros and their descriptions, and if you click, you will see how to use them. But today I'm talking about a further step in that direction, and this is autocompletion, which is built in the templates or the editor itself. So with this feature, you are no longer needed to navigate into that page to search for a method or how to use that. You can do it from the editor itself, just like that. Let me expand that. So let's assume that you want to modify an existing template just for starters, and I chose one of the default report templates called host statuses, just for simplicity. And if you want to modify the template to have more than simply a host's name and its global status, you can add, I don't know, for example, you want to add its subnet for some reason. It's just an example. You would go host, and of course, you might guess that it would be subnet macro, and you will be right, but let's say that you want to write a bit different template, or make some different or more complicated queries. Or you simply want to know what you can gather from the host object. So you would go host, and what now? You would navigate into the documentation page and look for all the methods that are available there. But now you can use the built-in autocompletion. To call that, you press Control and space, like in any other major text editors or code editors, and you will see all the available macros here. And the list is pretty huge, but you can sort them out by providing more information about what you're going to use. For example, I'm going to use host, and what I want is to see what is available for host. So you can type host, and you can see that this object has, well, those, let's say, properties or macros that you may access. And here you see the same list, but just next to it, you can see these the description for that macro, the usage, and what it will return. Most of the time, it's simply string or some object. for this particular example, it will return a smart proxy object, and in case you want, then well, let's try do that content source. And if you want to gather more information about content source, you would go then try to find smart proxy, and you can use its name or ID, let's say. Now so now the writing of the templates is more quicker, I would say. And just to show some more complex macros, like load host 1. As you've noticed, I'm on the new line, and in case you don't want to write all the text by yourself, they're also available in the autocompletion. So let's go with that one. And you can start writing right away. So let's see what we can load, for example. There's a bunch of loaders, and if we want to know how we could use load hosts in a different way than we can see in the default template, we just choose load hosts, and we can see right away its definition or signature that this macro accepts search, what should be included as the result, and all other stuff that you will use if you know what you're doing. Also, there are a few examples. Of course, there is a basic one or even more complex one. And if you simply press enter, it will auto input all the whole method, and it will work just any other autocompletion you might be familiar with. Let's type search. Then you can use tab key to navigate through to other arguments or parameters, and shift tab to get back to previous one. So mostly that's it, but we went even further and added, in case you can't remember which keys are to use to show that list, which is again control and space, or you just don't want to press it each time, we added live autocompletion option for you. If you check that checkbox, live autocompletion will be enabled, and whenever you type something, the list with available macros that match some pattern will appear. That might be pretty handy if you're writing report templates or webhook templates or any other templates that require those tags all the time. But there might be a problem if you're using a provision plate, for example, because if I enable it here and I want to simply add another package I want to see installed in the new OS, I would go, I don't know, let's say git, and if I happy with the name of the package and I hit enter, I would see that it converted to macro, which is annoying, so you can simply switch off live autocompletion. In case that you don't want to use autocompletion at all, of course you can switch it off at all. So in case you have your own bindings for Control and space keys, you can just switch off autocompletion. And if I didn't forget anything, that should be it. Just to remind that this will work in any editor you will see in the Foreman application. And that's it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ole. That looks really handy. That is great. So let me see. Have we any questions? As this is the end of our user-facing demos for the day. And we've had a kind of a quiet afternoon, morning here. So I don't think we have any questions. So thank you again, Ole, and we can move on to our Foreman developer focus demos. So we have two today. First up is Maria, and Maria is going to talk to us about a new tag that has been added to Foreman GitHub.
Yeah, hi. I'm gonna share my screen just to show it.
Do.
Yeah, if I find the tab. I'm gonna use Amir's PR. Basically, we want to help plugin maintainers that are not in the Foreman organization in GitHub, so they will see if a PR will have breaking changes to other plugins. So, for example, the Add Details tab in New Host page, it changes some IDs that will break in plugins. So there is a label of breaking change, and the maintainers will try to edit in PRs. And if you open a PR, you can also just write in the comment that it has a breaking change. So the maintainers will add this label, and then plugin maintainers can easily find the PRs that broke their plugin. If something happens, they should ease it up so they can find the specific place in the specific PR that broke. So they won't have to go like into the code and check all the PRs. We're gonna try to maintain it as much as we can, but we can't always know that something will break. So it's not a promise, it's a hope, basically. And yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Maria. All we can do is hope. So I think we can safely move on to the final demo of today, which is Andra. And Andra is going to talk to us about GraphQL schema associations and why we need record for.
Yeah, thank you, Melanie. I have a presentation just to support my thoughts. It's not much of a presentation, but let's do it. I just want to talk about GraphQL and what I've hit as an issue, and just explain it to other developers so they don't need to go through the same debugging process as I did. Just shout out, this whole effort was done by Ondřej Pražák and Timo Goebel and others supporting them for sure, but these were the main people behind the whole GraphQL effort, and big thanks to them. It's definitely a nice feature to add to Foreman. Though it comes with a technical depth already, because they were designing it quite a long time. So they based their work on GraphQL Ruby 1.8.18, but that's as of now 3 years old version, and given it's quite a lively gem, it evolved since then quite a lot. So we are using some idiomatic that were already deprecated or even removed in the newest versions. So if you are debugging something in GraphQL, be aware that we are using older version, and you need to look at that version in GitHub. That confused me quite a long time, that I was looking for something that we are using and it's not in the code, and I was having troubles to see why, and then I found out that it's already gone in the newest version. With that, I found that we are still using already deprecated methods and features, and we should definitely try avoiding that. So if you are gonna work on GraphQL, please take a look at the code base of GraphQL. It's not that complicated, and it's quite easy to see what's in the new one, what's in the old one, if you just compare the two. So please try to stay away from the old features so we can migrate in the near future. Just because this version is unsupported on a Ruby 3, and when we will need to migrate to Ruby 3, we will definitely need to bump the version, and someone will need to update our usage, and those people will love you if you just don't add more to their plate. What I found is that resolve lambdas are deprecated, and we are using them quite a lot. So in GraphQL, the way how GraphQL gives you back data is that you define the path to data, and it will resolve the path you want to get the data from, and it uses resolvers internally, and you can write custom resolvers. And in the version that we are using, it's possible to pass a resolve lambda, but that has quite a lot of drawbacks that I've hit. So now I will talk about one of them, but there might be more. Just please try to stay away from them. They have good documentation, so refer to their documentation on how to do things differently. So I've hit an issue in Ansible where we have a GraphQL type for Ansible role, but we are subclassing this GraphQL type by something that enhances this role and adds more attributes, and we call it presenter. This is a new concept for GraphQL wrote in Ansible, but basically that's a way how we add more data than the Ansible role itself presents. So it's quite a nice concept, but then it comes with some issues that we were hitting. So if you, all right, I think I will go to the code now to explain myself a little better. So let me reshare. So we have the type Ansible role, which is pretty straightforward, and then the underlying object that GraphQL uses to get data from is Ansible role, and there everything is straightforward, and we can easily define this association for Ansible variables and use it in graph queries, and there is no issue at all. It worked, and it was all fine. But once you decide to use the inherited ansible role, which inherits the ansible role type, you hit the issue that the underlying object that GraphQL uses to get data from is not actually ansible role itself, but it's the presenter concept that we introduced, and it wraps the object of ansible role, and obviously it has no relation to ansible variables. And when I started to look a little bit deeper in how to resolve this issue, I found that this resolve lambda that we still use for belongs to association and will need to change is unable to recognize whether you are in the type class or its subclass. So I couldn't do a different thing. I couldn't resolve differently the association on ansible role and differently on the inherited ansible role. And that's quite a big issue that is impossible to resolve with Lambda, or at least not that I'm aware of. And it's quite simple to do in the resolver class. So I've introduced a new resolver class. How we are building those is quite dirty, I would say. Not a great design, but yeah, it works. So if you get around to fixing that, people will be definitely happy. But right now we will build a resolver class that will include the association module, and that will resolve it for the object. And there we can already decide how we want to resolve, depending on the given type that we are currently on. And there's where the record for comes from. So if you come around record for method, it's basically every model has its GraphQL counterpart, if you want to include it in our GraphQL, and it all of those inherit from base object. But we usually want to pull data from active records, and that should be the purpose of the record for. And for the basic object, it will be just itself, and usually that's enough, and it will give us the underlying active record model. But for our inherited ansible role, we need to override this so we can get from the wrapper the actual record that we will resolve associations on. It's a little bit hacky. That's why I wanted to shout out how it's done here and share what I've learned in the process of resolving this issue. And that's it from me.
Thank you very much, Andre. That was a lot. So thank you very much for guiding us through it. I don't see any comments or questions. We've had kind of a sleepy day, so I think we've come to the end of all of our demos today. So if you're watching now and you think of something later on, or you're rewatching at a later stage, just please feel free to ask any questions in our community discourse. I'd like to thank everybody who came along and took the time to demo today, and those of you who watched live with us, thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you again soon. Thank you and take care.